TUFF SHIFT. Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of TUFF SHIFT, the podcast where we unpack all that goes into surviving the job and living the dream. I am your host, Patrick Murtagh, and if you are watching, you can see I'm in my own version. I was inspired by a recent guest, Alice Ringler, and my own little skank tank, because it's hot. It's hot, and I live in LA. I know it's hot over in New York, and as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, when I was on the verge of passing out with a guest, that it's if I look sweaty, if I look uncomfortable, I am, and I can't have the AC on and record. So I thought, why not take a note from that tall drink of water that is Alex Ringler? And though it's not a skank tank, I wouldn't call it a skank tank. I was inspired to, I look good in a tank top too, so let's do it, right? How about the gun show? Just kidding. Unless you pay for that. Maybe the tip jar goes up this week. Who knows? If you're listening, I apologize for this rambling. It's already beginning, and we're only a minute and 18 seconds in. Welcome to a very unique TUFF SHIFT, a first of a kind TUFF SHIFT. We're trying something new this week. We are doing an entire episode that is just the pre-shift. The pre-shift is the full shift, the post-shift, the wind down, all of that. And we're just kind of taking advantage of the fact that it is summer. And for some restaurants, it's a crazy time. Like I know people, that have worked in the Hamptons for the summer, and they can float themselves into the new year. Depending on what neighborhood you're in New York City, like if you're by the High Line, you're crazy. If you're on 7th and 23rd, not so crazy, right? Because those people are out in the Hamptons. Nobody's really working on Fridays, summer Fridays in New York. It's a thing. The tourists come in. The tips maybe go down. Your volume goes up, but your tip average goes down. Anyways, summer's a toss-up for restaurants. If you're busy, you know you're going to be busy. You brace yourself, you staff yourself, and you make it work. You just see that golden carrot at the end of the stick, and you stay fighting. Other times, August and January are the times of year where your manager might say, this is the time to plan a vacation. If you were thinking about going on vacation, we don't need you. So go. And when a restaurant tells you to take time off, you do, because you're not going to get it in December. Just not. So I thought that we take advantage of the slow season because I have been pounding the pavement and getting amazing guests so far. And I have amazing guests coming up that I just cannot wait to share with you. People that I have seen their work. I have seen them in the lines at audition. I notice them on Instagram. I follow, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And that's just around the corner. It's coming up. Next week's episode is going to be lovely. Somebody who was referred to by another guest. So we have so many things down the pipeline. But right now I found myself in an interesting situation where I knew I was going on vacation. I just got back from Tahoe with a lovely extended weekend. It was pretty much a week, but over a weekend with my fiance and his family. And I was on bar duty. I love going to Tahoe. It is one of my magical places. It is a magical place. And the same way that Provincetown is a magical place where you just feel the energy there. You feel some sort of magic. You feel in tune with the surroundings, with the surroundings. If I'm talking funny, listen, I speak 2 languages and I just started a diet this week. So back off me. I'm starving. But it is such a serene and magical place. And especially with what I'm dealing with at my current job, where it's a bit of a headache, it's a bit overwhelming. And as I look at my paycheck and I look at the effort I'm putting forward, something's not lining up. I was telling my cousin this. She was down visiting, so I went and had dinner with her, and she's like, maybe they're skimping out on your paycheck. I'm like, they're not skimping. I'm like, thank you, thank you. I have so many wonderful women in my life that will go to bat for me, and that if I needed to like tell them to attack someone, they would. So thank you. I'll keep that in my back pocket, but they're not skimping me. It's just the fact that this place, uh, it's kind of like what I experienced when I worked at the Smith. There's so much going on. There are so many people required to make this bar function, that it's not, and there's as many people as are coming in and necessitate the, the the tip share is just not it. There are too many people behind the bar in the tip pool, but we can't have less because we can't get through the shift. And the one good thing that the Smith did was they required that guests close it at the bar. They were very guest first, very guest forward, but they knew what was up, and they required, well, as soon as you settle with the bar, let our hostess know, and we'll see you, which is wonderful because this place is like so guest first. It's too much. They have their heads up their ass about how to maintain quality bartenders and what guest first is, right? It's not that deep. Like you don't have to let them walk all over you. You can ask a guest to close out with a bar. If they refuse, they refuse. We move on. But we literally transfer hundreds of dollars of worth in tips to the servers. And then what would have been 100% of our tip, we're now getting tipped out. So we did all the work, we made their drinks, we talked to them about it, and then instead of closing out, they transfer their drinks to the server's ticket, and then the server gets that tip, and then from that tip, we get a portion of that tip, even though we did everything. So it's kind of lame, and it kind of sucks. And I mentioned many, many, many episodes ago about what to look for when you're sitting at a bar, when you're at the bar for a drink. Because I think a lot of my listeners who are not in the industry, who have never been in the industry, y'all are so wonderful and thoughtful with your comments and questions and your concerns about, am I being a good customer? Am I being a good patron? Am I being a good human being? And I appreciate you asking me. So I just thought I would take this as an opportunity to reiterate what to do, what signs to look for in this kind of a transaction. So if you're at a completely tipped house, I mean, completely pulled house, where the bartenders, the waiters, everyone is in the tip pool, a portion is going to the back of house, a portion is going to the host stand, the bussers, when we're all in one pool, and they say, and you ask, should I close out my check with you? And if the bartender's answer is, no worries, we're all good, uh, then that means that we're in the pool. So we're not getting just a percentage of the tip. Or whether you pay us or you pay the server, we're all in the same pool. It's all fair. It's all above board. We're all benefiting from this. Then transfer it to the table. If your bartender is not in a tipped pool, they'll try to close you out. They will try their darndest to close you out. What I do is, when I know someone, they come up and they say, hey, we're waiting for a table, do you mind if we get some drinks? I want to say, yeah, if you fucking close out with me, but I can't. I can't. But I find little ways. I'm like, sure, we can get you, and you find little gentle ways. You can't even say, yeah, sure, we got you, we can close you out whenever you're ready. That you can say. There's ways around it. But what I do is, I make the drinks, and I immediately, and sometimes even before I make the drinks, I get the ticket ready. I get their bill ready, and I have it next to me so they can close out. And if they say, hey, do you want us to close out with you? I say, that would be great. It's up to you, but that would be wonderful. That means that that the bartender wants you to close out, because we're not in a tip pool, and I'm losing out on the tip for the service I provided you. Another way is if they say, can we transfer this table? And I say, sure, or I could close you out right now. I have your check ready. That means that the bartender is losing money by you transferring. And at the end of the day, it's your call, but you want to know, so this is what I'm telling you, and that's exactly what it is. Yeah. So do with that what you will. When in doubt, just close out. Just close out. And take care of your bartenders, even if you transfer. If you're kind of like, I don't know, if you end up transferring and you have some singles on you, leave some cash at the bar. That's pretty cool. Actually, the place that I'm talking about, um, what is a diplomatic way to say this? Um, hmm. I'm trying to find a really nice way to say this. Well, I already said that they have their heads up their ass, so I guess what do I need to be diplomatic about? So we have this one couple that comes in, and I see them coming in. The funny thing is, a lot of times when I have issues with the restaurants, it's not my coworkers. Very rarely is it the people. And even though some of the people that come to this restaurant are have been made to be very entitled diners and regulars, a lot of them working in this area of Los Angeles, like I mentioned before, reminds me of being on the Upper West Side, to where yeah, all the things you need to be a pretentious human being are there, yet magically you're not. People that I worked with and waited on and bartended for on the Upper West Side were some of my favorite customers I've ever met, and really want to know. They're excited about supporting their local business. They're excited to see what the chef recommends. They're excited to see what the bartender can do. Quick shout out, just because they popped into my head, so I figured I'd say hi. Rob and Angela, who were my regulars at the Owl's Tail, which go to the Owl's Tail. It's on 75th and Broadway, between Broadway and Amsterdam. Yeah, I always get confused that area. I'm like, is it Columbus or Amsterdam? I think 75th, it's Amsterdam. Anyways, just really amazing people. And this place is no different. So I see these two people come in, and I know he's having our version of a Vesper, and she's having our little like spin on a white sangria. And there's been times where they've just transferred to the table. But because I have their drinks ready, because I see them, because I take care of them. And when the woman's drink, we changed the menu recently. And so I was like, this is going to be your last one. And tomorrow it's going to be something different. And she was visibly upset. And I was like, I know it's hard. It's hard to let go of things. It's hard, but it's a better drink. And so what I did was I just made her a version. It wasn't live on the menu. But I had all the ingredients to make the drink that was going to be launching the next day. And I said, this is on us. And I just want you to be ready. Oh my God. Nannying has made me such a better bartender because I was like, I just want you to be ready for the change that's coming up. And so I did that. When they come and sit at our bar and when they transfer their tickets, she always comes to the side of the bar and she slips me a 20. Now, I'm not saying you have to be that extravagant, slipping a 20 when you're already paying the prices you're paying, but it's the thoughtfulness that counts. And I guess at the end of the day, to answer that roundabout question, is it's just about being thoughtful of your bartender, of your waiter, of your busser, of the people next to you. What we're really looking for is the thoughtfulness and thinking of us as human beings, and knowing that it's not just about hospitality and making you feel welcome. It's about paying bills. All right. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Tahoe. I needed this break from this job. It is consuming me. I'm having dreams about it, just like and non-ending dreams. So I was in Tahoe and I was on bar duty. The best thing about being at Tahoe and having this break from this relentless restaurant that is just physically I wake up and I'm like, did I die? Like I feel like, can I move today? Is this a heaven? Am I about to have an out of body experience? I knew Tahoe was going to be uh, restorative. I knew I was going to regenerate. I knew I was going to relax. I was having a great time. And really just the love of bartending, the love of making drinks for people I love. And the cool thing is, my fiance and his family love to cook. I love to cook. There's too many cooks in the kitchen in the best way. We're all so excited to take turns. But this year, I decided, I'm going to back off because last year, I inserted myself, and I also had duties with the cocktails and was making cocktails all weekend last weekend. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to be a hero, and is me being a hero and thinking I have to do these things, is it offensive to people? Am I being like overstepping, like, hey Sean, we can do something too, you don't need to be the hero? So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna let Jeremy do what he wants to do. I'm gonna let Ryan do it. I'm gonna let everyone's gonna do what they want to do. And I don't need, if they want me to cook, I'll cook. But I don't need to like have my foot in everything. I don't need to have my hand on everything. Everyone gets a chance, and everyone is so amazing. Like his sister just makes like the most ridiculous like salads, but that family makes really good salads. They all make really good salads, and I don't know what in the bloodline, in their genetics, like simple salads. Like, God damn, this tastes like heaven. And so I'm on drink duty, and I look forward to this all year long. I am rambling. I am so excited to talk to you about these beverages. So Jeremy's stepmother um, uh, loves Cosmos, and I found that out because when I came out, Jeremy moved out to LA 3 months before me. He got the place we're staying in now, and I came out for his birthday and to see the house. It was really exciting. It was wonderful, and his parents ended up taking us to Cirque du Soleil, down at it was the Staples. Now it's the Crypto. Who knows what it's going to be tomorrow? The non-existence art venue, and we were in line, and they didn't have like a Sauvignon Blanc, and I was like, did you want to do maybe a cocktail? And she was like, oh, I didn't know they made cocktails here. I'm like, well, they have a full bar. And I was like, it looks like they have what it takes to make a Cosmo. And her face lit up. And I was like, oh God, we're doing Cosmos today. We're doing Cosmos at Cirque du Soleil, aren't we? And she was so happy and so excited. So like, I take notes. Take notes. You take care of the people you love. And Melinda, whose house we stay at in Tahoe, she's Jeremy's, our brother-in-law's mother, but she feels like a bonus mother-in-law because she feels like family and a friend all at once, and it's like we're just this unit. Anyways, she loves Cosmos. Cosmos has a bad name. I love Cosmos, and all year long I'm thinking about what drink am I doing for this Tahoe trip? What drink? And when Jeremy was on strike recently with work, which his coworkers really, I mean, it was a phenomenal experience. It wasn't phenomenal financially or emotionally, but it was phenomenal to see how people came together. And, we're in LA, everybody has some sort of a fruit tree in their backyard or vegetable growing at all times. And one of his coworkers or one of his fellow union members had a whole shit ton of kumquats. A whole shit ton of kumquats. And Jeremy came home with like a Trader Joe's bag full of kumquats. I'm like, what am I going to do with these? So just like eat them, free. But what do you do with kumquats? And one day I was just like craving a Cosmos. So on the way back from work, I got all the ingredients I needed. And I was like, looking like, well, I didn't get triple sec, but I have citrus. So I muddled these kumquats and I made a kumquat Cosmo, and it was phenomenal. I was like, this for Melinda and for Amy, I'm doing this Cosmo, and for me, I'm doing this Cosmo in Tahoe. And and I was so excited. Can't wait. And we're getting ready to go to Tahoe, and I'm looking for where I can buy kumquats, and they're out of season. Yeah, I keep forgetting that like a lot of citrus is winter. Like citrus feels summery, but a lot of citrus, especially the orange kind, is more wintry, early spring. So there were no kumquats, and I was like, well, there goes everything. I was so sad. I was so sad about not being able to make this kumquat margarita that I could not shut up about. And then one day I was coming home from work, and I had stopped by Trader Joe's because there's like 5,000 Trader Joe's near my work, and I stop into one of them and I see these golden gooseberries. And I think to myself, let's see what this looks like. And so I made I didn't make a Cosmo. I made a gooseberry margarita. And I was like, close enough because they're related. They're sister cocktails. And so I ended up infusing this vodka with these gooseberries for 24 hours. Should have let it sit a little longer, but and then I muddled it in there and strained it and whatever. Let me tell you, these Cosmos were heaven. It was the perfect amount of sweet, the perfect amount of acidity, the perfect roundness. And I made a pitcher full of them. and shook them per order, but it was just delicious. And they were a little darker than you would expect your Cosmo to be like, because people think that because you're using ocean spray, right? So they like to they think a Cosmo is based on the color scale. So the lighter, the less sweet. That really has nothing to do with it. I get what you're thinking of. You've been misled because the places you've been going to have been making Cosmos with that very specific syrup company named after a flower, which I'm not sure I can say, but she was also a golden girl played by Betty White, that brand of grenadine. And that's not a Cosmo. And so that, but you're actually, if you want it less sweet, just let them know and they can pull back on the triple sec and the simple syrup, but it's not the color. And I only bring that up because we used fresh cranberry juice. It was tart. It was beautiful. It was delicious. Oh, none of this is what I had scheduled to talk about for this pre-shift, which is actually on brand with why I'm talking about doing this entire episode of pre-shifts. As you know, I have a formula to this show, and it took me. I knew kind of what I wanted with the formula. Formulas are how I get through life. It's just how my brain works with my self-diagnosed ADHD. If I don't have a structure or a formula, it's just like I'm in the abyss. I'm in endless possibilities. I'm in like, in the 80s, like when you're inside a computer and you just see that gridded forever. That's what I'm in. I'm like, where is a wall? I have to build I can't build a wall. I can't, and don't build walls. Okay, people, remember what I brought up a few weeks ago. We're not building walls here. But I need the structure. And that's how I use it in every area of my life. When I can create a structure, a pattern, a formula, that's all my cabarets, all my Christmas cabarets, pretty formulaic. Now, I then, it's like lattice, right? You have lattice to help the plants grow up and around. But as the plants grow healthy, they grow in the directions they want, the flowers but here, the flowers but there. You don't notice a lattice. You just notice the most beautiful arch of roses. 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 Remember what I was saying a few seconds ago? Roses. You just see the plant. So same thing with my concerts. This is my formula. This many songs, this pattern, boom, 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 up, down, boom, all this. There's a pattern. And then I put in the work to make you not see the formula. Similar with this, but I'm going to share you the formula. I'm going to share you the formula. I'm going to share the formula with you on the show. I have the pre-shift, which is I thought was pretty clever as my opening number. I always tell my guests, I'm like, I'm gonna put you in a holding room. I'm going to have my little Jimmy Kimmel moment, my opening monologue, my Johnny Carson. I used to say Johnny Carson, and then people are like, who's that? I'm like, fuck you. Hey-o. But and then I'll bring you back on and after the pre-shift. And because in every restaurant, and well, not every restaurant, every good restaurant has a pre-shift. And for those of you who don't know what a pre-shift is, it's the conversation you have. It's the meeting that the servers have with the managers and the chefs and the wine directors and everyone involved before they go out to start the service, before the reservations start. What do we talk about in pre-service? What's up? What is our focus this week? What are we talking about as far as wine sales? What wines are we pushing? What specials do we have? Let's talk food education. Does everyone know about this sauce that we're serving? Does anyone know what is so great about this fish that we're offering that you can't get anywhere else? All these types of things. And then also like, what are you guys noticing? What are guests saying? What are you experiencing? What are we running low on? So it's a way to kind of get us all on the same page. And for this show, what I've noticed was I knew I wanted to kind of have something to open up because I say I have a lifetime full of experiences and stories and nightmares to share. But in getting us all on the same page, it kind of relaxes the guest because they're listening. I don't do this separate of the interview. I know some podcasts, their openers are filmed separate. I like my guests to listen because I need an audience. But I also want them to feel like, hey, to trigger something like this is just a conversation. It's very low stakes. It is they are your memories, they are your experiences. And I love it when, 40 minutes in to the interview, they're like, it's like you said in the opener, and then they share of themselves. So the pre-shift kind of gets us ready for the main event. And the main event is indeed the interview, where I bring on the guest and I introduce their credits, what they're known for, what they've achieved, what they've got coming down the pipeline. I sing their praises. And this information is partly what they send me because I ask for everyone's bio. So it's all things that they know that they do. It's all things that they've constructed into a bio that they would submit for any show that they're doing, for their website, for any press release. It's all stuff that they put together. They know they did this. They know they were on Broadway. They know that they won these awards. They know they were on national tours, but they never really digest it. And so when people say it back to them, it's meaningful. And every guest, you can go back and listen. Every guest is like, "Oh my God, I just please sing my praises." I'm overwhelmed. I never really hear people talk about me that way. Well, listen, baby, call me up. I'll tell you how amazing you are. I will emphatically tell you how amazing. I will emphatically support you and push you and sing your praises to you and to whatever audience we got going on here. Our amazing audience, I should say, by the way. We're small but mighty. So we are small. Well, we're growing actually. Grower, not a shower. I'm not going to edit that out. But to our amazing audience, to hear about your things. And when I hear that, so and so went to a comedy show in Atlanta, that Maddie Pagel went to go see someone at the Nico, or went and saw somebody in New York, because I said that is exactly what it's all about. It's about creating a community here, right? And then we go on, and the first two questions are always the same. I want to just get the ball rolling, because if we have the first two questions lined up, then everything else is a piece of cake. Everything else is whatever it should be. So I want to know, what made you a stereotypical actor, singer, director, artist working in hospitality to pay the bills? And what is a tough shift? That's the name of the show. We're going to talk about name your shifts. What is one that stands out about the rest? You can share 10 if you want, but that's that. And then I have a list of industry related things. We're going to talk shop. We're going to unpack shit. We're going to just share horror stories and war stories from, the front lines of brunch and dinner rush. And then I like to kind of switch it in. There's like a little moment where it's like we kind of transition to the artist, to who is the person behind the apron, and what are the goals you're working towards, or you were working towards, while supporting yourself. Because some people have left this industry. Some people have fulfilled their duty and they were able to support themselves as artists. Some people are still in the trenches, and some people have shifted onto other areas of their life. So I want to figure out the artist. I want to figure out what you're doing now. I want to figure out how it's all married together. And then at the end of the shift, we talk about one person, just one person to give a shout out to, because we got plenty of people to talk shit about. But who's one person that stands out for you that has made a tough shift easier? That's the formula. That's the show. And I've mentioned many times, I could ask the same questions to every single guest, and every single show will be absolutely unique and original. And so far, that's what it's been. And in some cases, these conversations have gone on so long, we've had to divide them into two. And part of what makes them go long is not just how the banter and how we get along with each other and we vibe. It's also the fact that I do talk a lot. And these pre-shifts, I'm getting to my original point from a half hour ago, that these pre-shifts do kind of go on, because once I get started talking, I have my list of things I want to talk about, and then something spurs something else, and this spurs that, and that spurs this, and it's just, whoops, we've already been doing this for how long? And I've tried. I've tried. For all of you listening, I've been like, I'm going to keep this pre-shift short, and I want to aim for 5 to 10 minutes. And then it's like, shit, we're at 22 minutes again, and I haven't even introduced the guest. So all of that to say, this is why this pre-shift is a full episode. We're trying something new. I want to kind of branch out. I feel after 44 episodes, this is the best time. We are hitting a little summer lull. Let's try something new, right? Let's take this time. And this is something that one of my favorite managers from Cookshop, Anna Marie, would say, like, in moments like this, like, how do we make regulars? How do we, set yourself up to learn something new? How do we really, what's the word? How do we really, in this time when we're slow, how do we really learn what we can do? How can we go further? How can we polish? How can we make ourselves better? And these slow times are times to reflect. So here's the best time to where I'm going to try. If you don't like it, there'll never be a pre-shift show again. There'll never be maybe not. But most likely I will skip it. But I do want to do other shows. I want to have roundtables where we talk about celebrity run-ins, where we talk about, I want to have Rachel Green sitting with Matthew English, sitting with Jen Liv, I want to get the comedians, I want to get the cabaret people together and talk about, stuff specific to their industries together. I want them to meet each other. So that way when Rachel's in Atlanta or Matt's in New York or Jen, everyone's in LA, like in this bounce around, they can meet each other and know each other for the show. It's about creating community. It's about sharing people's greatness and having us have this conversation because, it's much better to say it out loud than to keep it bottled up. And there are so many things. There are so many things to talk about as we've done here. And we've seen in some of the comment sections of some of the Instagrams and the TikToks that people are like, well, why don't you get a new job? Why don't you try something different? Shut up. Shut up. This isn't for you. We could get a new job, but if everyone that hated this industry got a new job, who would serve you your well-done burger? Who would serve you your nasty-ass 99-cent Pinot Grigio that we're charging $15 for? Who would put up with your bullshit, all right? So you have Yelp to be a Karen on. You have Yelp to be a chat on. You can go do that. This is for us. You're more than welcome to listen. You're more than welcome to discover things that you may not have known are part of what makes your meal happen, what makes your celebrations happen, what makes your birthday happen, all the things you come to a restaurant for, the things that we do and the hoops that we jump through for you. And it's not that virtuous. It's not just we're doing this for you. It's selfless. We got to pay bills, right? And this is what makes this job so interesting because it is accommodating to our lifestyle. It's accommodating to the restaurant's needs and needing people who can interact with people, who can entertain people. It's not just serving food. It's creating an experience. So it's like this, we unpack the stereotype here, right? So it's not about finding a new job. It's about finding a new attitude. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're going to move on with the show. We're going to move on. This pre-shift, not the full pre-shift, but this initial pre-shift, which is the longest pre-shift ever, is officially over. Now let's get back to the episode. Now this is where I would, start introducing the guests, but it's me. You met me on episode 1. You can go back to episode 1 if you didn't meet me, and you can hear all the things I talked about on episode 1 about how I ended up in this. You don't need to hear me talking about how I headlined at Lincoln Center during the pandemic. You don't need to, how I, Birdland right here, the Mario Lanza concerts. I got my own Squigs drawing. You don't need to hear about my MAC Awards and my Broadway World Awards. I talk about that enough. You don't need to hear about playing Bobby and Company is one of my favorite roles ever. You don't need to hear about selling out venues in Provincetown and San Francisco. And I'm going to spare you all of the highlights of my career, right? That would just be gauche. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little summary of what's going on. What's going on? A recap? A reunion? I don't know, about what some of our past guests are up to. Now, this is one of my favorite guests, and I've been a guest on his shows, and he's just such a captivating person. He did a show at New York City at the Laurie Beachman back in May, and it was such a success. He's doing it as this is being aired. As this episode airs, Richard Skipper is in Provincetown right now doing his show. Everything you wanted to know about Richard Skipper, but were too afraid to ask. He's doing that in Provincetown. And he'll be doing it again in New York on Friday, August 22nd. Is that a Friday? That's a Friday. August 22nd at 8 p.m. at the Laurie Beachman Theater. If you don't know Richard Skipper, Google him. Go to the episode. I think it's like 11-ish, something like that, 11 or 12, 10. He might be 10. I don't know. And listen to all his stories about working in restaurants, his stories about finding love as a waiter in a piano bar, his career in cabaret, his career in being one of the premier Carol Channing impersonators. He's a Broadway historian, a golden age of Broadway historian. He's keeping that torch lit to pass on to the next generation. And Google him. Go see the show, ask questions. This is a really cool concept of a show because it's brand new every night. You go in, you scan a QR code, you get a piece of paper, whatever, and you submit a question, and he reads them live from the stage, mixed in with a few songs that have been planned. But he shares about his stories. And I got to tell you, Richard Skipper is one of those people that could talk to you about boiling hot dogs, and he would just make it seem like the most magical experience you've ever had. So he will charm. He's from the South. He's from the South, and he moved up to New York, and he is so charming. You're gonna absolutely love the show. Do not miss this opportunity. If you're in New York, if you're in Provincetown, run out now. Pause this. Come back to this episode. But go see Richard Skipper in Provincetown. Go see him August 22nd in New York City at the West Bank Cafe, at the Laurie Beachman Theater at the West Bank Cafe. And you can buy tickets at wbcnyc.com. A lot easier than the Laurie Beachman, which is the name of the theater, but people will misspell Laurie and they misspell Beachman. So wbcnyc.com and use your discount RSC 2025. That's for Richard's RSC is Richard Skipper Celebrates, and that's his show on YouTube. You can see some familiar faces like mine on that. Yeah, he's wonderful. The very next day, on the very opposite side of the country in San Francisco, Leanne Marie Dobbs is bringing her show, The Windmills of My Mind, her tribute to Dusty Springfield, as told through her experiences of dealing with, a diagnosis of ADHD as an adult. That's the spinning wheels, the windmills of her mind, and discovering, as she talked about on our show, in watching old Dusty Springfield interviews, be like, that lady had ADHD. How crazy. And using her songbook to kind of navigate the map that she's made for herself, that Dusty's made for herself, her highlights, her this or that. I heard her sing it in Los Angeles, and it is, again, I said this last week, some of the best singing I've ever heard her done. And I've known her for coming up on 20 years. Holy shit. Yeah, I've known her for a long time. So this is some of the best singing and storytelling I've ever seen her do. She is amazing. Another charming and captivating person who really rolls up her sleeves, who is such a nerd about this art form that she just puts every ounce of her spirit in it, and you're going to love it. So August 23rd at Feinstein's at the Nico, and you can get tickets by going to feinsteinssf.com. And when you go, tell them Large Marge sent you. Now, further down the line, my best friend Marty Millett and her husband Michael Guerin will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of their debut album together. Hey, look, it's Michael and Marty. It is a fun 60s, late 60s, early 70s, late 60s inspired standards with that kind of spin, that Dean Martin, that Frank Sinatra, that Ed Sullivan special guest, all those variety shows. It's like that. And the two of them and their humor, their heart, and they're just incredibly, like, I remember when it came out, and then I think last year I went back to it to listen. I was like, Marty, yeah, that's a really great album. And it's almost 10 years. You guys should do something. And I'm not saying it was my idea, but I'm just happy that they're doing it. And that's going to be in October, on October 12th. It's a Sunday at 7 p.m. Again at the Laurie Beachman Theater, the brand new renovated Laurie Beachman Theater, where Marty has already sold out multiple times and is going to sell out again with Michael, because the two of them are some of the most beloved performers in New York City, with amazing credits to their name, awards. Michael wrote the song of Singapore, like all these, they're just amazing and amazingly talented. And Michael, you can actually catch 5 nights a week at the Roxy for their happy hour. That's downtown in Tribeca. I believe it's 6 to 8. It might be 5 to 7. Look online. Go see Michael. He plays music from all over the world. He ties in music from all over the world together to create kind of a musical unity and harmony, which is something that feels a little healing right now with everything that we're living. So that's what's going up. That's what's going on with some of our past guests, and I cannot wait for you to see them and support them. We're going to take a little break, and I'll be right back. Hey there, just checking in. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. And if you are, why not leave us a 5-star review and a comment or two wherever you're listening to this from? And don't forget to follow us on social media at TUFF SHIFT Podcast. That's TUFF Shift Podcast. Everywhere, literally everywhere. And just a reminder, gratuity's not included, but tips are always welcome. And you can find our virtual tip jar at tuffshiftpodcast.com. That's TUFF Shift Podcast.com. All right, back to the show. Did you miss me? Hope it wasn't too long. We're back. Wow, I've never really announced a commercial break. I kind of like the way that feels. Makes me feel a little more professional. Probably won't happen again. I'll probably forget it. Anyways, and also it doesn't feel right with a guest. So we're going to skip that, all right? I'll put in a commercial. Don't you worry. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is something I've talked about quite a bit on here. You hear me. I say it all the time. You hear about that gym cult I escaped in New York City. And I call it a gym cult because it was a gym cult. And it still is a gym cult. And they do amazing things for people. It's Mark Fisher Fitness. I believe they're going through a rebranding right now. But I mean, it was the gym of Broadway for the longest time. It was my 30th birthday gift to myself, and everyone was doing it, so I was like, I want to be cool. And so for those of you who don't know, I used to be like a quarter pounder away from 300 pounds, and I changed my life. I was like, I don't like this, and I'm gonna do something about it. The only body shaming was myself. This is not body shaming towards anyone else. I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the way I wasn't happy, and we'll talk about it another time about how it was unhealthy and body shaming for myself. And how I though that wasn't the best way to start the journey, I did find a way to not just heal my body physically, but spiritually and mentally. And it's something that I'm still working with and still struggling with. And it's why when I go out on my birthday, or to celebrate my birthday, I always like to do something that's not just eating a giant steak and having copious, is that the right word? Amounts of Manhattans. I like to do something to celebrate my birth with health, whether it's going for a run, whether it's going for a workout, doing something to be thankful that I have the strength that I have the mobility that I have the health that I have, something to express gratitude. So when I was turning 30 in 2013, my gift to myself was this like $800, what money I did not have back then, boot camp called Snatched in 6 weeks at Mark Fisher Fitness. And Lord, I drank the Kool-Aid. I was all about that place. I was all about the online forums. We were like, it was all about education too. It was all about education. So we did like 10 minutes worth of stretching and warming up and all this stuff to just get the body moving and not just going through the motions, but understanding why we're doing this and why this stretch helps and why we should be, not just holding a stretch, but releasing and back engaging, and almost like yoga, to where you don't push it, you just go with what's comfortable and then you reset and you go, and we're just getting the body moving. And it's not going to be the stretches you see, you saw in aerobic videos from the 80s. It's not going to be just pushing yourself balls to the walls. You can do that as it happens naturally, but just a gentle, like getting yourself into it. And it really gave me the vocabulary I needed to understand my health. And I mean, baby, I was snatched in 6 weeks. I had a little itty bitty waist. I got down to 165, which I look, as my brother Andrew said, you look like a lollipop. You just are this stick with a giant head, because your head stays the same size. But what was the point of that? Oh yeah, so we're swinging. I mean, part of what really brought me into it wasn't just the education, was how fun it was. There was disco balls. There were, and this is going to sound really weird, there were like dildos on the walls. So it was silly. It was irreverent. It was pink. They shot off, God bless Landon, miss you, shot off confetti cannons in the middle of class. It was a phenomenal place. Like we were doing burpees, like to the Pointer Sisters jump. And like when you aligned your burpee with a jump, just the amount of gay queer joy that fills your body. Oh my God, that was just like, it's meant to be. So, but it still was a cult, right? There was definitely in the class, there was lingos, I don't know what any of these exercises are actually called. I just know them as their like inappropriate Mark Fisher names, and learned how to do a squat, which I will not share online. But the teacher gave me a visual about not just about planting your feet, not just about the hinge, but gave me a visual that, hey, if you want to know, DM me. I will give you a voice memo for what that visual was, but I'm not going to share it publicly like that. But I will always do an amazing squat, because every time I have to do squats, I think of what they told me to think of, and I land it each time. I land it each time. And so I'm very grateful for that. I did get a little too deep in the cult. It did start, I was like, what am I doing spending this much money when I have a bigger dream to pursue, when I'm working in a restaurant to pay this, because it was all class based. So it was like, it was a lot of money. I drank the Kool-Aid. I don't regret it because of what I learned and the community I built. But there were definitely things where I was like almost insufferable, and still kind of am. Like from 2013 to 2018, I left them in 2017, but up until like 2018, I was insufferable. Where I would be in a restaurant and I'd be like, oh, let me get that for you, and I just like start carrying things. I didn't mind carrying heavy trays full of bricks or whatever it was, and I'd be like, look at me, I'm engaging my core. I'm doing a walking plank. I'm doing a walking plank here, everybody. When it came time to like the umbrellas at Cook Shop were like in these giant cement bases, because there are wind tunnels in Manhattan because it's a grid. So if one of those umbrellas gets a little wind, it goes flying down the street. And even with these giant cement blocks, sometimes they skid it a little bit, but just pushing them in, like it's just like almost like one of those football exercises where you just tackle that, whatever. I don't know, I'm gay. I know there's gay football players, whatever. But you just kind of like go after that little dummy, and you push it back and someone's pushing at you. That's what it felt like. But I was like, it's really just about engaging your hammies and your this and your that and your glutes and your blah blah blah, and just nonsense, talking about hinges nonstop. And the thing that gets me every time is when one of my coworkers, who may be shorter than me, asks me to reach something on a tall shelf. Oh, I still cannot. It's a trigger. It's a trigger that I cannot let go of. And I'm like, don't worry. Because I'm like, can you get that for me? I guess I could get a step ladder. I'm like, don't worry. Don't worry. This is actually really good. We don't, in our modern society, I get so douchey. In our modern society, we don't reach for things, which is something that we did as part of our primitive existence. Like, we had to reach for the food. We had to reach for a branch. We had to reach to climb. We had to reach for safety. And it's something that scratches a need in our nervous system, because our society has evolved, but our nervous system is the same as it always was. And reaching is a really good exercise, because it's not just about exercising the body. I mean, just, and it's like, I'll get the fucking bottle myself. I like, my coworkers like, please stop talking about reaching. and the neurological primitive urge it scratches in you. I think that I might have to go to HR if you bring it up one more time. But this one coworker just thought it was hilarious. Like, what are you doing? And so we got into this whole thing about like, I was part of this gym cult, and da da da. We're talking about cult behavior, and I mentioned, it must have been like Dax Shepard. It's always armchair expert. I'm like, I was listening to something this week. It's always, I'm become, not only do I have a podcast, but I'm that person now that like talks about other podcasts. Everything is, I heard on this podcast about cult behavior and cult lingo, like cult languaging, and how effective it is in kind of creating a sense of belonging, and creating a community through communication, through a vocabulary that only the people in this small group understand. And so it kind of like, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I know what you're talking about. And it's like, almost like this, like, you almost feel a little better. You almost feel like a little elite, because I wish everyone could understand. I wish everyone could understand the word, and so it's this cult-like behavior that, in creating a vocabulary, that's how cults build their followings. That's how they get dedication. That's how they enroll people to stay on, because it's this, we understand something together that nobody outside of these walls understands. And my manager was happened to be there, and like he's listening in and nodding along, and I'm talking about how even in the gym wasn't a cult, all right. I don't want to be offensive and call it that when it was, but it's not like a real cult, though it might be. But just like talking about how the languaging of that just kept people coming back for it and kept people hooked. Kept people hooked. It kept me there for 3.5 years, spending money I should not have been spending on. Because in my mind, I was like, well, if I get the body of my dreams, I'll be on Broadway. Doesn't matter how great I sing. Doesn't matter how good of an actor I am. If I have the body, that's the one thing holding me back. And they didn't prey on it, but it's just one of those things where it happens. So we're talking about this cult thing, and like I said, my manager's like nodding along and listening along. And then I kind of bring it into like, and they mention that a lot of businesses and corporate lingo basically is like a cult like strategy to keep people in line, to keep people in tow, to keep people submissive. And a lot of workplaces, a lot of corporate lingo is actually very cultish in its DNA, in what it is. And I could just like see all of a sudden my boss was like, "Brum," like no expression, because it was like, now we're dissecting this place, which is definitely, I'm not going to say cultish, but definitely uses a lot of corporate lingo. Um, in fact, one of the biggest stressors about the place is that most of my training was not really about making the drinks and about the food. We did learn about the food, we did learn about the drinks, but it wasn't like 4 shifts in until I got behind the bar, because I was in classrooms, 6-hour classrooms, learning about the soul and the story behind all these things, and then this like corporate lingo that I was just like, calm it down. It's not that deep, right? It's not that deep. We can back off, but I needed the job, and I was like, you know what, I've worked here before, and I can just sprinkle in like, oh yeah, I've worked for Union Square Hospitality, which really they don't have to know it's the catering division. It's not as intense as the regular restaurants, but like the trainer was like, you worked for Union Square, so you know. So you know. It'd be like a missionary finding someone that has already read a Bible. They're like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, I know. Because as much as I realize it's not that deep, like I can talk your language if that's what you want. Because again, as I mentioned before, when I train people, I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you the words you need to know to get through the shift, or to to be meet approval of the what they're expected in the restaurant, and then I'm going to teach you how to get through the shift, right? So I'm going to tell you how to talk the keywords that they want to hear. So I know how to do this. I've been doing this a long time, and when I see people who are like pissing Kool-Aid, I know how to speak to you, baby. And I did. I was like the star. I was a star in my group of trainees because I've done this before, and it's just a matter, it's not about what they're talking about. It's just the fact that it's their specific way. It's all the same. None of it is that deep. But why are we learning about all this corporate culture and your specific corporate culture and your core principles and your values and not regurgitating, it felt like blah, but like having to reiterate that back to you in a written form. We took tests. We had to explain, there's a circle in a triangle, and it's your circle of responsibilities, and everyone has one. And the circle is what holds up the walls of the triangle, which represent the guest on top, and the restaurant here, and of course, the team, the employees on the bottom. Same thing with principals. It's like guest first, employees last, which is something that just really triggers me, because it's like, if you don't take care of your employees, they will leave. If you don't create an environment in which your employees can thrive, in which your employees feel that they can trust you, that you have their back, how are they going to have your back? And they will leave. They will find places, like they'll find places that may not be as amazing and execute what you do, but it's a paycheck and it's much lower stakes, and they don't have to take these tests on what is the difference between hospitality versus order taking and this and that, and what is this, and what it's too much. But it's their company, so if they want to have this corporate lingo, if they want to have this corporate identity, which I understand to an extent, and I've said this before, it's important to know what you stand for. It's important to stand for something. You know, let's say if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Yes, I get it. But again, like I mentioned, it's not just enough to stand for something, it's enough to stand by something. If you want me to jump through hoops, the least you could do is hold the hoop up, because I just knew when you're in a place with this amount of intensity around what is our motto, what are our 6 core principles, what are our da 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 da, and really just drilling us on these ideas and these concepts about and having specific corporate lingo for just general things that like happen in every restaurant. Like you're not that special, but like I have to learn your dialect. I already know that you're not going to hold up your end of the bargain. That's a red flag. The more you're intense about that, that I just know that it is a one-way street. So I'm going to be held to this expectation, and you're going to drop the ball. And part of my expectation is picking it up for you. But I can't pick up the ball for you over and over and shake drinks and have these 5-minute ticket times, which for the most part I do. But I just can't do it, right? And it's like there's just so many things around these ideas that just are not sustainable. And I was looking up, you know, like in putting this together, like what are some suggestions of corporate lingo that is kind of like unnecessary to like just say what you mean. And when I was looking up, you know, like this place has a thing called like I'm feeling very day 6, and I don't like feeling day 6. And that means when you're overworked, because, you know, 5 days of work, if you're working on your day 6, you're overworked, you're not going to provide the best service, you're going to be maybe a little short fused, you're going to be maybe, that's real. And yeah, it's my job. Same thing if I'm on stage and I'm not feeling well. I was performing this Christmas on steroids. People paid money. I have to make it work. Like we have to make it work within reason. I get that. But you also have to acknowledge it. Like, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm not in my best space, but I'm still doing it. I'm not going to beat myself up for being on day 6. I'm not going to beat myself up for having laryngitis. The shit happens, and if you can find a way to get through it, you get through it. But don't beat yourself up for being human, for having a shitty day, right? And my manager was on his day 6, and it was just like, can you? And the thing was, is it stopped our conversation. We were having a really good conversation. We were just kind of shooting the shit and being like, for me, I have to talk shit. I have to talk shit about customers and how outlandish they are, or I'll explode. And I understand. And we put back on our faces. We get back out on stage. We get off stage, and it's like, we go back on stage, and you know, it's all fine. But to hide it and then use this like corporate lingo to then like get it. I grew up Catholic, all right. I know about guilt, but to like guilt yourself and to punish yourself for being a human being, like fuck off. And some like weird things that they were talking about, you know, I looked at and I was like, we're gonna double click. Let's double click on that idea, which means like to look in further, to further investigate. Let's move the needle, which just means to go a little farther, put a little more effort, get more into it. Obviously, you know, take this offline. This is not appropriate, and we don't want this documented. Closing the loop, making sure we're just making it all happen. We're following through. And I'm looking at these things and being like, how can I relate this? And, you know, none of that's really important what I shared. But at the end of this article I didn't realize that the article was 31 corporate slang terms to avoid. And I looked up on Atlassian.com, ATLASSIAN. Hopefully, I didn't really do that. Hopefully, it's not a problematic site. But it was 31 examples of corporate jargon to avoid. And this is what it said at the bottom of this article. Say what you mean, please. Simply. When it comes to communication, here's the best rule of thumb. Keep it simple. And to remember that the language you choose can make or break that simplicity. As Charles Mingus, the famous jazz musician, once said, anyone can make the simple complicated. Creativity is making the complicated simple. So it's not that deep, right? It's not that deep. Like, let's not go off the edge in trying to uphold these corporate values, in trying to make sure we cross every T and dot every I. You know, maybe that we don't need to be doing all that. Maybe we can use a word that doesn't involve a T or an I. Who cares? So save the euphemisms for just the right time. Otherwise, just take the time to say what you got to say and make it relatable in an understandable way. I think that's beautiful. I think that this industry could greatly benefit from this concept of like, keep it simple, stupid. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to come up with your own corporate lingo to make it your own stamp on this. Like, it's food. It's food, it's beverage, it's people in aprons. And yeah, there's something special about the way we do it, but we're not so unique to make it not food on plates and not liquid in glasses and not people with warm personalities to make people feel at ease, right? Let's just keep it a little simple. And I got to tell you where it kind of like goes a little too far. They have this thing that they do, and I'm not going to say what they call it because it might be a giveaway. But they come in once a month to all of their restaurants and they harass you. No, they they fucking bother. No, they don't. They ask you questions. Right? You're getting ready for service, and there's the person who's in charge of training, there's one of the owners, there's the chef owner, there's the chef this and that, and they're going around to each employee that happens to be to have the unfortunate circumstance of being on this specific day, to be scheduled on this day, where they're going around and they're quizzing you about our 6 core principles. We're quizzing you about our pillars. We're quizzing you about our motto. What is our safety focus this month? I mean, none of this is like really bad to like check in with people, but it's all in the way you do it, right? It's all about this like life or death situation, to where I've said before, pre-shift is not about making people wrong. Pre-shift is making sure we're on the same page. So if somebody is not on the same page, you're like, hey, skip it. It's like being that kid in elementary school, like, actually, we're on page 6. Don't worry, I won't tell the teacher. It's one of those things. But we just, or even the teacher saying like, oh, I'm sorry, you're on the wrong page. You read ahead, or you must have went off into daydream land, which happens. But here's where we are. So let's get on the same page. It becomes aggressive. It becomes a bit mean. It's kind of like a little terroristic. I'm not sure if I can find a better word. I know what I want to say. I can't find the word. But it just seems like it's weaponized. Like the knowledge of this place is weaponized, and they quiz you, not looking for what you're doing right, but looking for what you're missing. And there's something to that, like, oh, you missed this, because part of it is not just saying what you're doing right. It's kind of like, oh, this is what you're missing. Great, got it. Now let's move on. Because if you're only going to tell people what they missed and not what they're doing right, what is the incentive? What is the incentive? Because fuck, every time you ask me, there's going to be something. You didn't hear the comma. You didn't hear the period. You didn't hear the excitement in my voice about this X, Y, and Z, about how you have it structured on the paper. Like, if you're going to, like, they came in, and then, so after they're done quizzing you, they sit down. They're the first table to come in. They're the first ticket that goes to the kitchen. They're the first ticket that goes to the bar. And they ordered a drink that was coming off the menu the very next day. Actually, the same drink I mentioned earlier, which was not a terribly exciting or thrilling drink, and it had crushed ice. So luckily, it was me, because the front of house is graded and the back of house is graded based on their experience in what they ordered, and in not just making it correctly, the execution, the timing, all of that, the knowledge and the execution. That's what they're looking for. And my manager comes up to me like an hour later and says, well, we lost a point for that one drink. And I was like, what was the problem? And he's like, but they said it tasted watered down. Yeah, we lost a point. And I was like, okay, like, that's the drink that somebody at that table created. That was their recipe. That was their cocktail. And they want that much crushed ice in it. Like, it's gonna taste watered down. It's a wine cocktail. It's not gonna have that much body. And like, so we lost a point for the drink that they ordered that's coming off the menu tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to apologize. That's the drink. But I was like, did they like anything? And he's like, oh yeah, there were definitely lots of things they liked that you did, but we lost that point. That seemed a little. Is it just me? Am I being too sensitive? Am I being too sensitive about this whole experience? Like, you can't tell me one thing that they liked. I lost 1 point for the team for a drink that somebody at that table judging it created, and I followed their recipe. You can't say what they liked. You're just going to tell your staff everything they're doing wrong. That is not sustainable, and it's not going to have the effect that you think it's going to have on the restaurant. It's going to just decline the quality, because you're going to wear out the good servers. You're going to, because you're just going to, what's the point? If I'm not making as much as I should be, and everything I'm doing seems to be wrong, I'll move on. And you can get somebody else in here to make a drink and take 10 minutes to make 2 drinks. You can do that, and then you can lose 20 points. I don't care. So it's one of those things where it's like it becomes just mean spirited, and it's not having the effect. It's not guest first, which is what they are, like guest first. So like when the quality of your staff, when your staff feels demeaned, when your staff feels undervalued, your guests are going to feel that. I'm going to bring this back to Union Square hospitality, because though I have many issues with that little Bible that Mr. wrote, one thing that I will stand up 100% and say, he got that right, even though it may not always happen in the way he says it happens, but in his order of importance, the employee is first before customers, because whatever the employee is feeling, the customers will be the first to feel it. So if they're being reamed by a manager, if they're being yelled at and having plates thrown at them by a chef, if they're being told how awful they're at their job, that stress is going to come to the table. And that does not make an enjoyable environment. So for that, I got to say, Mr. Meyer, I do salute you. And you know, I'm not harsh, I'm just fair. And I will give credit where credit's due. So thank you for doing that and setting that bar. I wish more restaurants could live in your example. Just to drive this point home, during this training period that I have, in which it was just exhausting, one of the managers shared with us an anecdote about just how serious they take guest first, how serious they are about, they'll comp anything. They'll comp anything because they stand by their product. And if the guest doesn't feel they had the experience they deserve, they'll just comp it. So this lady, he shares, is at the bar, which I could already tell, if this is a complaint about somebody going to have dinner at the bar, you're not the person that should be sitting at the bar. Because yes, you should have the same experience, but you can't. I can't get what I need done at the bar. Sitting at the bar is a unique experience. I enjoy it because it's a little lower stakes, so I don't feel overwhelmed by a waiter who has to take me on a menu tour, a waiter who has to hit X, Y, and Z points where I'm like, I already know what I'm going to get. Please stop talking. Like, But at a bar, it's a little more chill. It's a lot more chill. So some people want to sit at the bar to have that bar experience, but then when they get the bar experience, they're upset that it's not table experience. And I knew right away that this lady was not going to be happy if this was going to be a story about a lady sitting at a bar and it's talking about a full comp. So apparently she heard something the bartender say that was inappropriate, which, hey, bartenders say inappropriate shit all the time. You do not want to hear what I say to my coworkers. You do not want to hear, especially to my work husband. Like, you don't. We have to say shit to get through the shift. We have to make each other laugh. We're crazy. We say some pretty morbid shit. But you don't want to hear that. But I never do that in earshot. And I know some people don't have that same decorum. They maybe put their personal life a little too close to hearing radius. But apparently he said something inappropriate, and she wouldn't say what it was. She wouldn't say what he said, but he said something and she didn't feel comfortable. She didn't want to eat there, and like her food was like just about to come out of the kitchen. And so my manager comped her entire meal. And then, because there was a sister restaurant down the street, took her by the hand, like, we are so sorry you had that experience. We are so sorry, blah, 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 blah. And brought her to the sister restaurant down the street, even though her food was all ready and all comped, and she just wouldn't want to go to a table, didn't feel comfortable in the restaurant anymore. And comped her entire meal at the sister restaurant. Warning, Will Robinson, warning, danger, danger. That was a red flag. I was like, this is not right. And so then what happens after that is they do a plan of action. So it's basically like a fancy write-up. So it's not just a write-up, but it's a write-up to where you acknowledge what you did wrong. And you make a plan of action with your management on how to be better, how to avoid that in the future, and how to like just barf write me up. Just fucking write me up. All right. Don't make me do this thing. Cause I'm like, something tells me this isn't as you say it is. And he gets to this whole story and he's proud of himself that he did all this and comped two full like $1,000 worth of food and drink. Like you're proud of that. And you're holding your bartender accountable for what this guest said that they did and da da da. I was like, when I let him finish, and that's how they do things. So if you ever have an issue like that, you have to come up with a plan and you check back in 30 days and you see where you are after that write-up, because it's not technically a write-up, but it's a fucking write-up. And I let him speak and let him finish. He was so proud of himself. And I was like, this is like my 6th training. And I have heard so much about how you go to bat for customers. I have heard so much about the things you'll do to make customers happy. But I have not heard one thing in this entire training. And I did this a little bit to just kind of like push back, but also everyone else in my training group was like 20 something. And so because I've been there, that young person, eager, new into hospitality, and I've just been made to feel like a piece of shit and dumb and stupid and worthless. And if I'm not doing what they're asking me, then I'm a failure as a human being. I've been there. So I just wanted to let these 20-year-olds, like, please do the work. Don't be to be as sassy as me and to push back. You gotta earn that. But I do want you to know, you don't got to take this shit from nobody. So I said, what exactly was said, and what is the recourse? Like, if this bartender didn't do anything, like what do you do in that? Like, where do you stand up for your employee who says, I don't know what that, because shitty customers exist and they'll complain about anything. What do you do to stand up and show that you will have our back, to show that you advocate on behalf of your staff? He said, well, you can always trust that we're looking out for you. Trust that the company is always looking out for me? Yeah, baby, HR is not designed for that, just so you know. Directors of happiness, it's not my happiness, it's the owner's happiness. Okay, nice try. But then he went on, and I was like, he saw that answer was not gonna fly with me. And he said, basically, there is a statement, because dun 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 dun, update, his fellow bartender was right there and said none of that happened. And I was like, oh, you weren't going to share that with us? Like that none of that happened? I was like, so what do you do? And so the fellow bartender had to write a statement saying that they did not see what this lady saw and they do not agree with what happened and how it happened. And this gets like stapled to this report. I'm like, so you have a witness saying that none of this happened, and all you're going to do is staple a paper to this thing, but now this employee has one check mark against him? That's a little too fucking much. For me, that's a little too much, and it's not sustainable. The long story short of it is, you have to have your own back, everybody. The reason I share this with you, whether you're in restaurant work, whether you're in any field, you have to have your own back, and you have to make sure you have all your box checked. You do what you need to do. You keep your nose clean, you keep your hands clean, you keep everything clean. This is why I say, you don't, even when the manager says, hey, we'll have a drink, you don't drink on the job. No. When they say, oh, do that, no, you don't take handouts, you don't take nothing from them. You keep everything above board, because trust and believe, the moment they need to use that shit against you, they can and will. I want you to follow somebody who I think is amazing. Like, I want to say, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Just kind of hold it. Like, when somebody's at a party and they don't want to drink, but there's pressure, so they just hold it, dump below in the plants. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Clock in, clock out, cash that check, and pay your bills. And somebody online that I want to shout out, not a restaurant account on Instagram, but Brandy with an I, _ the millennial manager. Please follow her. She has her shit together. She, much like this anecdote, she keeps it real. Clock in, clock out, do your thing. You do not need to give an excuse when you need PTO. You do not need to do X, Y, and Z. Do not, like, the whole list of things that you make sure what your rights are and what you got going on. And to make her even more amazing is, it's not just about talking shit about your bosses. It's not just about, standing your ground. It's also like you have to show up to work. So she called us out too. Like, she's like, you can't be complaining about go to work when you're the one that went to needed the job, right? So like, she holds everyone accountable. Like, do what you need to do, leave when you need to leave. Don't buy in. Don't share too much of yourself at work. Don't do anything, but still do your job. You can't complain about having to work. That's the exchange. So please follow at Brandy, the Millennial Manager, everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, all that. She's phenomenal. While we are at that point, funny, I can't keep, I thought this was not gonna, work. I thought this pre-shift was not gonna work. I still have, I feel like whether it's 20 minutes or a full hour, there's my dog shaking his tags. I still have so many points to share with you, which I guess I'll use in future pre-shifts with future guests. But this has been a really fun experience unpacking all of this with you. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. And if you do, let me know if there's constructive criticism you want to share. Go ahead and do that, right? I'm just so happy to be starting to do new things with the show, to be reaching out to you and bringing you content in new ways. So next up, look for group shows, look for future pre-shifts, look for who knows what things and how we're going to make the show a little more interesting and shake things up. But I'm glad we got to do this. And I have all these things I want to say. We didn't get to it. It doesn't matter if I'm limited to 20 minutes or 45 or 60. We got through it. That went faster than I could have imagined. And I was dragging my feet today, being like, what am I going to talk about? I do the same thing with performing. I'm like, oh, it's gone. I don't have it. And then I get on stage. I'm like, blah. So there we are. That's the show. Before we go, I do want to do a very special shout out and dedicate this episode to someone very special. Last 2 weeks guest, Leanne Marie Dobbs, reached out to me to let me know there was a shooting in New York City, in which 4 people died, including one officer who was on duty, and he died in the line of duty protecting people. His name was Didarul Islam, Officer Didarul Islam. And Leanne wanted to let me know. She was upset because she worked with Officer Islam at Crave. He worked there as a busser, and she absolutely loved him. Had nothing but wonderful things to say about him and his work ethic and how proud he was. He came from Bangladesh at 20 years old to America. He worked multiple jobs to support his family. He learned English as an adult and was one of the most kind-hearted, this is all from Leanne, one of the most kind-hearted individuals you could ever imagine. He, to the point where if he knew somebody was having a hard time at work, he let them know, like, hey, just so you know, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you. He was a source of love. He was a hard worker, a dedicated family man. He loved being in this country so much. He became a citizen and eventually made his way to the New York City Police Department, where he served. And unfortunately, he died in the line of duty this past week, and leaves behind a wife and 3 children and a family in both countries and in many industries. And between his restaurant family, his police family, are mourning his loss. So this is going to be a very special shout out to Officer Islam. Thank you. We will continue your memory, speak love in your name, and be forever grateful for all the joy you brought people in your life. This has been another episode of TUFF SHIFT. Just remember that tough shifts build character, and character is what brings your story to life. Take care. TUFF SHIFT was created and hosted by Sean Patrick Murtagh. It was recorded on Riverside and distributed with Buzzsprout. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review and maybe a comment or 2. And remember, tough shifts build character. And character is what brings your story to life.